How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Super Fantasy Bros podcast, which is part of the Triple Play Fantasy Network. I am one half of the team, Kevin Coleman, and I am joined on my podcast by my co-host, Jacob Dunn, as always. Jacob, how's it going out there? Are you feeling okay after your Broncos? How are you feeling out there in Bronco land?
Broncos stink. That's just plain and simple. Oh my gosh, they were frauds in the first 3 weeks with a cakewalk schedule, and then we actually face some teams that have some skill, and we get demolished. All right, so that's the Broncos for you. I believe that they'll finish probably 7-9-1, and we're going to be in quarterback purgatory, which is what the expectation of Teddy Bridgewater starting was always going to get us. I don't know why we started him. We either tank or we try to trade for an upper echelon quarterback, but we stuck with Teddy, and this is what it gets us.
This is what it gets you. And I had a tweet that I said, them not being able to find a quarterback since 2015. And even then, they got lucky with Manning kind of falling in their lap. Like, that's inexcusable, especially with that defense. You guys have a legitimate defense.
Yeah, I mean, we have one of the top payrolls in the NFL on defense, just none on our offensive line or quarterback. And it's not only inexcusable, it's laughable.
Yeah, no, it is. I just wanted to bring it up. My Cowboys are doing pretty well. We're pretty excited about where we're at right now. But no, what I would say is, as far as that quarterback situation goes and does all that stuff, like, you got to get a new quarterback in there. But the biggest thing is like, that team has talent. I just want those offensive weapons to be fantasy relevant. That's all I want. Right. I want my Sutton and my Judy as Vince comes back. But hey, like always on today's show, we're going to be covering recent news, breaking down everything you need to know, and, talking about week 7. And it's a big week for a lot of fantasy managers out there. And we got a jam-packed show. So let's take it off.
Let's go.
Here we go. So let's just talk about our reactions from last week a little bit. We'll touch on this, maybe not like, who disappointed or whatever, but man, a lot of injuries out there right now, Jacob. Yes. My IR is just filled with guys just hanging out. I have one team that has 5 running backs in IR, and I made a joke today on Twitter. I said, man, I'm loving these week 7 buys because my team with 5 IR spots out there is doing better. I feel like I can compete finally. And so, what is your takeaway just in terms of, injuries and the week 7 buys that we got going on this week? Are we just surviving this week? Is that how we're going to do it?
Yeah. First of all, injuries suck. Second of all, I mean, I'm not dropping anybody important just for this week. You know what I mean? I am very adamant on, I am willing to sacrifice 1 week if it means that I am going to ball out the rest of the weeks. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to drop anyone crazy important unless I have to, unless I have to fill my roster spot. If your team is full of Cowboys and Steelers, yes, I get that you have to cut some people who are on the border, but I'm not going to sacrifice, or I will sacrifice this week if it means just competing the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I agree. I think so too. And I always knew week 7 was going to be a monster for me. I have a lot of Dallas. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of Chargers, and obviously that hurt me last week too. So that definitely put me in a little bit of a rut there. But I think you do. You just got to adapt, like you talked about, and you're going to kind of play it out. And other guys are going to be dealing with this too. And so the reality is, if you have a deeper team, like we've been mentioning and stuff, I think you can do that. Be careful with your drops, especially if you're in a redraft league and you have 4-man rosters on your bench. Like, you gotta be very careful. I strategically do this one. That's what I would say. Is just strategically kind of look around. I do have a trade that I just made, and I wanted to get your opinion on. We like to talk about this sort of things. I haven't made a lot of trades recently, and I definitely was feeling an itch. So in perspective, it's a 10-team super flex dynasty league. Okay. Basic scoring, 4-point passing touchdowns, PPR, just basic there, not tied in premium. So I traded Darnold, and I know you're gonna love this because I traded Darnold. In this league, I am 2-4, so I've won my last 2 games. But this is the league that I have Michael Thomas, Akers, and Dobbins. So I'm and I have Jonathan Taylor on this team too. So I actually have a pretty legit team. I had David Montgomery, but he got hurt too. So I had T. Higgins. I've been rolling out everybody just getting hurt. I'm still 2-4, and I don't like to not try to compete, especially in fantasy, especially when it's 10 teams. And I'm actually 6th right now at 2-4. Like there's a lot of, so I like to put it out there. So I traded Darnold. Now he's a 4th QB. I have Justin Fields, Wentz, and Tannehill. And we're going to talk about Tannehill in a little while. So those are my 3 other quarterbacks for Darren Waller, straight up. What do you think about that one?
Okay. And in a non-tight end?
Non-tight end premium.
Okay.
But no, go ahead. I want to see, before I say my rationale, I want to see what you think on that on the surface.
I'm just curious. Who was your starting tight end before Waller?
It's Noah Fant. I have Fant.
Oh, okay. So you were kind of shaky on Fant, I see. A little bit.
Well, I can start Waller in the flex, so it's very open ended. So the way I look at it, he's a wideout in terms of like my production. So I felt like the best value was there. But what do you think?
So with your litany of other options, like you have Wentz, you have Tannehill, and you have Fields. I mean, you're set for the future with Fields and Wentz if his confidence stays up and Frank Reich keeps like getting his mind right. At least you have Fields and Wentz. Tannehill's a little bit older, but I mean, he's still going to be playing for the next 5 to 7 years. So you're solid at quarterback. You don't need 4 quarterbacks. So you had that option of trading Darnold for Waller, who is going to be a tight end 1, tight end 2 for the next at least 3 to 4 years. I mean, like that guy is a beast. I mean, he is going to produce for a while now. So I actually like that trade for you, just with the context of all your other quarterbacks. And, you have Noah Fant, but the Broncos can't seem to get a legit quarterback. So Waller and Carr, it seems like that's going to be a duo forever. Like for the next 3 to 4 years. And Waller is quarterback proof. So that's nice too. So I like that trade for you, Kevin.
I think so. The way I looked at it, and I know Waller's not having an amazing year. Like when we look at what Waller is right now, like he hasn't. I mean, he's still tied in 4 though. So, but he had a big week 1. I think that's kind of skewed the numbers a little bit. But the way I look at it, and this is why I wanted to bring it up to everybody out there. If you're playing in a 10-man league, I think quarterbacks are less valuable. Would you agree? Because there's only 10 teams in the league. So realistically, you can, and I looked at my options, you could pick up some guys on waivers. Realistically, you can, because our benches are deep, but they're not that deep. So when I was looking at it, and I'd rather have Waller, who I feel like in a 10-man league is more valuable, just because I think the positional advantage in a 10-man league for tight end with what he is more valuable than Darnold. And that's kind of how I went into it. And I can move Darnold and Fant. Like there's a guy in the league that really loves Fant. Now it kind of gives me more ammo. I can say, hey, I can use him. So I thought it was an interesting deal. The league got a little upset. They were upset that I got Waller for Darnold. But I thought it was pretty fair, to be honest with you. Like he had Kelsey and Waller. He needed a quarterback.
Yeah, it's all about context.
I thought it was fair, but I just wanted to bring it up. We'll go there.
That's a win,
all right. Hey, let's talk about, players who stood out to us or disappointed us this week. I took the players apparently that disappointed us because I'm the pessimistic person in this group, in this team. And Jacob took the people that he liked and he thought did well. Why don't we start with you? Let's be optimistic first. What is one guy that stood out to you that you really like?
I'm going to go with Leonard Fournette. All right. He finished as the RB2 with 30.7 fantasy points in a PPR. He rushed 22 times for 81 yards and 2 tutties. All right. Along with 6 catches for 46 yards. All right. So Lenny now has 67 total touches over his last 3 games combined. So Fournette has officially planted his flag as Tampa Bay's lead back. And I think he's a solid RB2 the rest of the season, Kevin.
Yeah, hey, I like that. I just actually wrote about him in my Dynasty Trade Advice for Fantasy Pros. If you guys check that out, and I wanted to talk about whether I think he's a buy, sell, whatever. I actually put that he's a hold, just because I think if you're a contender, you keep him. With the running back situation right now in fantasy, you have to keep him. And if you're not, I still think that with his upcoming schedule, and I talked about it down the stretch, like his championship rosters at the end of the season, like the way that it plays out. I love his schedule. And when I was looking at that schedule, I said, hey, you got to keep him because the value is just going to be there. But no, I think that's a great call. He's running back 11 right now in PPR. Oof. Can you believe that? Old Fournette, baby. He is back. And in the championship week, he plays the Jets. And he plays Carolina week 16. The tougher matchup, but who knows what Carolina's going to be at that point. Right. New Orleans, they've been shaky. And then you're looking at that, I'll take that all day. If you could have him on your roster and you play the Jets, okay, and then even then, he's playing Washington, New York Giants, Indianapolis, Atlanta. Those are still good matchups for him.
Love it.
So I think you hold him, and I agree. I think he had a hell of a game. And he's basically made Ronald Jones irrelevant completely. And
see you later, Rojo. Yeah.
Sorry, Rojo Truthers. Sorry. All right. I went quarterback, so I'll probably just mention both of them because they're both basically did the same thing. Ryan Tannehill, QB 19, 13 fantasy points, and Justin Herbert, QB 22, 12 fantasy points. Oof. Both those guys are killing guys. And I tweeted out yesterday, Ryan Tannehill may go down as the biggest fantasy bust. And it was based on, and I got a lot of comments back and like, well, how could he? He was a mid-tier quarterback. You and me both know that people were not touting him as a mid-tier quarterback. They were talking about Ryan Tannehill being a quarterback one.
And he was going to be like a huge value in the 8th to 9th round. He was going to be in that top 10 every week. So
yeah, and he got. I think I looked at the ADP because people were arguing with me, and his most recent ADP towards in August was basically 7th round. So he was getting overdrafted. And people thought he can do that, and he's not right now. And with where he's at as far as the season goes, now this can be attributed to a few things. And I saw people making excuses, and that's fine. But it's week 7, guys. We can't make excuses for very much longer. Like, it's almost halfway through the year of regular season in terms of fantasy. Like, hey, you know what? Like, he's not producing. It's just not there. And so I know that, I think what is Derrick Henry? He's like on pace for 2,100 yards and like 75 touchdowns or whatever it is. Like he is, I know that is part of the reason. I know Julio's been hurt. I know AJ Brown has been hurt, but you still got to be more efficient than he has been. Yeah. He hasn't been efficient. And I think that's a problem. Justin Herbert, he got, I don't know what happened. You saw what the Ravens did. They dropped 7 in the box in the zone and just said, hey, beat us. I don't know if their game plan and script was good enough for that. And he really, really struggled. But I'm more worried, obviously, about Tannehill than I am.
Right. Yeah, I'm absolutely throwing that bad Herbert game away. All elite quarterbacks have bad games every now and then.
Yeah,
he's human. So the other guy that I think stood out is Jalen Waddle. All right, he had 29 fantasy points, and he finished as wide receiver 4. I say that he broke out. Now, it's hard to say that somebody broke out with just 70 yards, but he had 10 catches on those 70 yards and 2 tutties. All right. So if you are in a PPR, he most likely won you that week or did a great job winning you that week. His longest reception was just 14 yards, but it doesn't matter when you're getting 13 targets. All right. So it was a strong showing for the rookie after just combining for just 5 catches and 64 yards in his past 2 games. And it's really good to see that he did this breakout game with Tua. So, Waddle's outlook is looking good.
It is. And hey, he's my wide receiver 2, baby. He was my wide receiver 2 coming into this. And I just went on the Undroppable podcast with Jax Falcone, a guy I really like and I really enjoy. Okay. And we did like a mock redraft of the wide receivers, and he took Chase and I took Waddle still as before last week as my wide receiver 2. And he was like, wait, I thought that would be Smith or whatever. No, I think that Waddle has the clear targets. I think he has that target share. So I'm still high on Waddle, and I do like it. I think going forward, I think in redraft he's going to be a good player. I think. Hey, is it weird that Miami doesn't have a bye this week?
It is kind of weird, yeah.
Because they played in London. And I noticed that when I was setting my rosters because I was like, gosh, I don't have Waddle. I don't have all these guys. I'm like, wait, Waddle's playing Atlanta? I was like, wait. And that's something weird. I can't believe they did that to him. Poor Miami. Got to go to London. Miami. Then you lose the Urban Meyer, and then you got to come back.
Even worse.
Even worse. But I do like Waddle. I do enjoy. And I think that he's going to be a solid option. And I think he can be that wide receiver too in this offense. And then we're not going to bring him up, but shout out to Henry Ruggs. I got to give you credit, Henry.
Yeah, man.
Good for you. You saw that. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up bad memories.
Oh my gosh, man, 48-yard touchdown. I knew it was going to happen. I felt it in my bones. I was like, the Broncos are prone to these fast wideouts just getting past their secondary. And what happened? A 48-yard strike to Ruggs. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to him. All right, let's go to waiver wires because I think we got to talk about it, especially with it's bad out here right now. If you're in a dynasty league, I feel bad for you because there is nothing out there really. Redraft is mainly what we focus on this with, but maybe some guys that you can plug and play and be comfortable with. So who is your target one at a waiver position?
All right, I'm going with Rashad Bateman. All right, I'm going back to the well. I mentioned him last week when he was about to make his debut. And, he caught 4 of 6 targets for 29 yards in his debut. All right. He walked right into 6 targets in a very positive game script. All right. The Ravens demolished the Chargers. All right. And Bateman still saw 6 targets. Now, it was only for 29 yards, but that's very promising in his debut. All right. So it's the rookie first round pick has an excellent shot at carving out a significant role in this passing game behind Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. And he also has an excellent matchup in week 7 against the Cincinnati Bengals, which he should be more involved against a Bengals offense that has been showing out so far. So with so many teams on a bye week, you could do a lot worse than plugging Bateman in deep leagues or in your wide receiver 3 spot in PPR leagues. I think that he's going to have a fine game. I can definitely see somewhere around 6 to 8 catches for around 70 yards.
Yeah, no, the thing about Bateman is he had 6 targets on only 22 routes. So he saw a 27.7% target rate. Wow. So I love this stat I found today from Dylan Powell Analytics. He's a good little younger guy, and he's coming up the stage really well. So among players with at least 6 targets this week, that rate, the 27.7 target rate, was higher than these guys. Mark Andrews, his own teammate, who we know we were worried about him actually taking over. Waddle, who we just talked about. Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs, and CeeDee Lamb. He had higher target rates than all of those guys.
Unreal.
That is something to keep an eye on, especially going forward. Yeah. I think he could realistically be a wide receiver 1 on that team. And I wrote about it before the season started, just got hurt. But I think he can. I think he can step in there. And John Harbaugh talked about how good it was. He was catching first down passes. If he's on your waiver wire, I think he's a solid ad out there. I'm gonna go a little under the radar guys that I like. I like J.D. McKissic if he's available out there in your league. Antonio Gibson was pretty ineffective. He looks like he has a shin injury. He was in and out. McKissic he posted 110 yards. He had 16 touches, and that's what you like to see. And he got those catches back. Damn it. Okay, we've been waiting for McKissic to get catches. He's there. He got 8 catches. So I think, hey, you know what? I know a chunk of it came in garbage time, but with Gibson having that injury, Washington defense is not looking good. So you can see these game scripts that we like to see from them. I think he's a must-have handcuff, but I also think he's kind of a standalone PPR value, right? Especially with bye weeks going along. I think he has to be. I think that's there. I think he's a running back too. If Gibson misses time, he's a running back too. If he doesn't, you're obviously plugging and playing. Waiver, hey, I got to put him in as my flex. Hopefully he gets some catches and maybe get those targets. You're looking at 8 to 12 points probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In a 14-man dynasty league, I have him as my RB2 because that's a team that I have Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins. So it's been tough sledding, but he's been keeping me afloat. So he rushed the ball 8 times, which was a season high. As you said, Gibson's dealing with that injury. So he could just have standalone flex value for probably the rest of the season because that shin injury isn't going away.
Yeah, it's not. And it's going to be, and hey, if the Washington keeps losing, they might shut him down. And now you're looking at McKissic. Right. He could actually take over that lead role and be there. I'm loving that. I love that idea. I love everything about McKissic. I liked him. This early. The offense has been different, but they definitely need someone in there. So if he's there, I take a shot on him.
100%. And bonus, if Antonio Gibson ever fully goes down or misses any games, then Jarrett Patterson is the pickup. All right, he could just slide into 10 touches. So just keep that name in mind or on your watch list. So the next guy here, I'm going to keep this short and simple. It's Rashad Penny of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. I've been burned so many times by Penny. All right, he has been a bust so far. Well, he might just be the only healthy running back heading into this week. All right, head coach Pete Carroll said that Penny will be back to full speed this week. And with Chris Carson on IR and Alex Collins also dealing with an undisclosed injury, it's possible that Penny gets thrusted into a significant role early. So I think that Penny is a stash candidate just because it will be hard to play him this week because he plays on Monday night and Alex Collins has a shot to play. So it's not like you can rely on Penny outside of the deepest of leagues. But I think he's more of a stash because Alex Collins isn't healthiest guy out there. He can get hurt just as easy as Chris Carson just did. So Rashad Penny could have this backfield to himself any week now, if not next week, if Collins misses. Now, I know there's also DJ Dallas. There's also Travis Homer. Those are really 3-down backs. Rashad Penny is a 2-down back that the Seahawks most likely will need this week. And you probably don't have to spend any fab on him, any sort of waiver wire priority. You can just pick him up after the fact and just stash him.
I like that. I think that's one underrated part of this. Like Penny's part of that kind of waiver wire guys or IR guys coming off that IR that we may have forgot about. Other guys, Michael Gallup is still out there. Tariq Cohen is still out there. Jermichael Hasty, even Jeff Wilson, who I actually think Jeff Wilson might be a sneaky guy. Like
he's 100% stash.
He's gonna stash and maybe come in there, and he could do some damage for your fantasy team. So like, look at that IR, and see if like you can maybe make adjustments there and see who's out there that maybe people just dropped and forgot. You know how it is. It's week 7. If you're in a redraft league, 3 of your teams already quit, and so who knows where those teams are at in terms of what they have, and they might have dropped those guys and people just haven't noticed. Another guy that I think. You may be worth the flex spot is Ramondre Stevenson from the Patriots. Okay. Now, this is kind of against my golden rule of picking a Patriot, just because I hate how they do their usage. But Damian Harris, he hobbled in and out of the game. Like, he keeps getting kind of injured. But Stevenson was coming on the passing downs. Now, and that sound you hear is JJ Taylor Truthers just falling apart, that he can't get on the field for passing downs. But sad face for all you JJ Taylor Truther fans. But I think, he had 8 touches in the game. He had 3 catches, 62 yards. He had that touchdown. If Harris misses time, it feels like Stevenson's going to be the guy. And so right now would maybe be the chance if you have him. I think I saw him at 32% owned. Hey, that's I don't know about you, but I'm struggling with running backs. I need damn running backs right now. I can't find them on my roster. If you can grab him and use him, that would be ideal for me. I think that he's a safe play in terms of if Harris gets hurt. He's definitely a stash there. I do have a question for you that I definitely didn't tell you what was going to be on here. Are you picking up any Browns running backs this week? Or are you?
No, I'm not. Now it's favorable that it is in Cleveland. And so like, they don't have to travel to Denver, who they are facing the Broncos this week, but the Broncos have a pretty stout defense. Now, any RB that's looking at volume, is worth an ad, especially in this bye week ridden, like all of your players are gone. I get it. Like you want to go after a D'Ernest or a Felton. I mean, I personally wouldn't spend up on either of them because I don't think either of them are going to have a good game. Like I'm not going to spend all this fab for D'Ernest to get me 13 carries for 46 yards. That's just not happening. So I will stay away. I don't know what your thoughts are, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm staying the hell away.
Yeah.
It just, to me, I mean, unless you have to. So here's the thing. If you're in this situation where I have Hunt everywhere, I have Chubb everywhere, I don't think I have either one of their backups because I just didn't have the roster space. But if you had to, like, I like D'Ernest. But remember, I think we were on this last year with D'Ernest, weren't we? When Chubb went down and everybody's like, oh, you got to get him, and he didn't really do anything.
Right.
I like Felton, but remember, Felton's been practiced primarily at wide receiver for these guys. So if I had to pick, I guess Johnson would be the pick. I think maybe Felton because I think it could get a negative game script for them. So like they're going to have to throw a little bit more. So if you're in PPR, I think maybe adding Felton if you had to. Like that means your roster must just be like devastated. But I would definitely pivot to some of these other guys if I could and take a shot on them.
Same.
All right, so those are your waiver wire ads. Bateman. Now, like for example, if Bateman's out there, you're not don't pick up D'Ernest Johnson like in a flex. You go get Bateman. Like that's an easy decision. Rashad Penny, that might be the only one that you and me disagree on. I just can't take Penny anymore.
I get it.
He's just hurt. Then McKissick and
Penny Stevenson. Exhaustion is real.
Oh, it's like OBJ exhaustion. It doesn't go away. All right. Let's go over some guys that maybe we're in or out on based on how they've been playing. And this first guy, I don't have a ton. I definitely want to talk to you about some of yours. Chase Claypool, wide receiver 40 right now, Jacob. What the hell are we doing with Claypool?
All right, so he just caught 2 passes for 17 yards last week. All right, he put up an absolute dud, and it was much to my, I was excited just because I was facing Claypool. All right, I had Tyler Bass, the kicker for the Bills, versus Claypool, and I was down by 4, and I ended up beating that team by like 10 points. Surprisingly, because I thought that Claypool would go off against Seattle.
Yeah.
So he's been dealing with that hamstring injury, but he looked great. He looked great in this game. All right, he was running routes. And Big Ben even connected with him on this really long pass, but it was called back because I don't know. I think it was offensive pass interference. But Claypool looked good, and now the Steelers have a bye week this week, so Claypool should get somewhere close to 100% on that hamstring to where, you're definitely not dropping him. I know it's bipocalypse. Your whole team is hurting, but I would stash him as best as you can because I still think that he's going to be a productive wideout. Now, I know it's, like Claypool is the third target on the Steelers team. All right. It's Deontay Johnson, it's Najee Harris, and it's Claypool. So it's hard to bet on the third target on a team that's being quarterbacked by Ben Roethlisberger. I get it, but Claypool just has that upside that you can't just drop, and he should be healthy coming out of the bye. So I'm keeping him.
Okay. Now you bring up a good point. I think you have to keep him, right? Like I think at this point he's there, but dynasty wise, I'm a little worried. Like in terms of Claypool, like I've been seeing some serious slander out there about like Claypool's just not good. He doesn't create separation. He had a good year last year for a reason. I think it's a combination of that offensive line, a lot of issues going on there, and I don't think it's necessarily Claypool. I think Claypool could maybe be a cheap buy if you can get him for that area. But in redraft, you got to hold him just because not a lot of wide receiver 2s out there that are available, and then it's passing offense, and they're going to throw. Like, they're going to have that. I know they get Najee involved and stuff. There's a lot of things kind of eating into Claypool a little bit, so I don't think you can be too down on him in there. But let's talk about this next guy that absolutely screwed me last week after I didn't start him 2 weeks ago, and I lost a game. So basically, I lost 2 games because of this guy, because 2 weeks ago, I didn't start Myles Gaskin, and he went off against Tampa Bay. And then last week, I started him, and I lost by 8. So, Myles Gaskin, you are in my shit house for real because I am very upset at you right now. What are we doing? I don't think you can play this guy. Can you play this guy right now? Or what is happening in Miami?
I am not playing this guy worth anything. He followed up that 15-touch, 99-yard, 2-touchdown performance against the Tampa Bay Bucks in Week 5 with 7 touches for 14 yards. Against a lowly Jaguars defense, it's like, what are you doing? Do you turn it on for the good teams and then you turn it way off for the bad teams? Like, that was unreal, man. Through 6 games, Gaskin has topped 5 rushing attempts only twice. So the Dolphins aren't getting Gaskin carries for some reason. Like, they just want to spread the wealth to Ahmed, Malcolm Brown. Who knows why? I thought like with like Tua in, they're at full strength besides Parker and Fuller, but they have their quarterback and they have their, who I thought was their franchise running back, at least for the next like 2-3 years, but they don't even want to get him opportunities. So he, with only 1 game with 50+ rushing yards, I'm out. I can't trust him moving forward. He has an excellent matchup on paper against Atlanta, but he also had an excellent matchup last week against Jacksonville and only got 14 yards. So hopefully he does something next week so that you can sell high. But I'm not trusting him in any of my lineups until further notice.
No, you can't trust him, right? But even then, like when you say, oh, well, he had a good game against an incredible defense, and you're like, oh, I can trust him this week. He's going to play the Jaguars. All right, he'll get some run. And he doesn't. And it just, gosh, I don't know what they're doing with him. Like, I just don't know. All right, let's go through these other guys. Robbie Anderson, wide receiver 62. He scored a touchdown last week. Is there any hope, Jacob? Any hope at all?
He did score a touchdown last week. That's true. It saved what would have just been almost a goose egg. This one is so tough just because Robbie did get 11 targets last week, but he only hauled in 3 of those targets for 11 yards. All right. It's It's just that Darnold is also struggling. He has struggled for the past 2 weeks, which is probably what made that trade even easier for you, Kevin. Like to get Waller, say, okay, Darnold's showing some signs of, like struggling. I might as well move him for a Waller, which is a great pick. Now, I think that Darnold gets better, but Robbie and Darnold, they should already have that chemistry, like from their earlier days in New York. So Robbie has 29 total targets over the last 3 games, all right, which equates to 9.7 targets per game, which is fantastic, right? But he only has a total of 87 yards over 3 games. Like, he's not doing anything with those targets. So it's just, the targets are good, but the production is outrageously bad. So, Robbie, he does have an excellent matchup over the next few weeks against the Giants and the Falcons, but I'm only starting him in deep leagues, and only if I'm desperate for a replacement in Bipocalypse this week. Otherwise, I'm moving on.
Yeah, this pretty much is the only reason why he's starting on teams is because there's no one else to play. Like, you have to do it. I don't know what it is. Like, I think realistically there was a real thing between maybe some chemistry issues between Darnold and Robbie, where they just weren't connecting in New York, right? We saw it. He left, played better. Now he's back. And it's just, there's something off there. And that touchdown scored, but whatever. Like, we talk about it. Like, that was just one of those things. He had to get DJ Moore had to catch a hell of a pass on the sideline to even get close to that. Right. So we could say that he was wide open. And he's had a ton of drops. Like, it's just consistency stuff. So weird. And so my guy that I don't know is Baker Mayfield. He is, he's hurt. He has a shoulder issue, obviously. He has not looked good the last couple of games, and you've seen it. Arizona, QB rating was not great. He had 2 touchdowns, interception, but he got sacked 5 times. He was on the ground a lot. He fumbled twice. He did not look good against the Chargers. He threw yards and he had it. And he had 300 yards. So fantasy perspective, he did okay. He had another fumble in that game. But then against Minnesota, we saw, he didn't do much. He had 9 points there. He's been a very solid QB, like for basically 3-ish games this year. And then the other 3 have just been duds.
Right.
I don't know. I think that he's going to struggle as long as Chubb's hurt. So that offense missed Chubb a ton. Kareem Hunt being out this week, I'm out on him. Don't play him. I don't see how you can do that. And so I am cautiously optimistic. But hey, that division is no slouch. They play Baltimore back to back. Essentially, they play them week 12, week 14. They have a week 13 bye. So they essentially boom Baltimore. After, then they go to but see, their schedule kind of opens up. So that's why I'm kind of leaving a little bit of hope. Because, hey, they played, they got Denver. Who knows? I would probably stay away from this game because of the weapons. Then Pitt, tough. But, hey, Geno Smith looked pretty good against Pitt. Cincy, they can put up some points in that game. New England, you saw what Dak just did. I'm not saying Baker's Dak, but he has that ability. Detroit, and then they end it with Las Vegas, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh. There's some –
okay.
I see solid QB2 numbers in there. I don't see QB1 numbers, but you if he's healthy, he could put up 18, 16 points. I think would be a good ceiling for him. But that's not something you want to rely on. But I do think he's hurt, so that's a hard one.
What's funny is I've never been in on Baker Mayfield. I have never started him 1 week, and I love streaming quarterbacks. I just can't trust him. Like Cleveland has these running backs for a reason. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, so that they can set up the pass for Baker. It's just I never feel confident with Baker in any of my DFS lineups or any of my fantasy lineups. I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback. I just always fear that game where like the Browns are just going to control the clock and just run the whole time, because that's what they want to do. They don't want Baker to throw a ton. All right. So especially this week on a short week and he's hurt. Stay far away from him. I think I just did my quarterback rankings this morning. Baker, he landed as my quarterback 21, and that's being gracious. And there's only 26 quarterbacks playing this week. So it seems like he's a little bit up there at quarterback 20, quarterback 21, but really I am out on him this week. I'm like, I get what you're saying. Like, he does have some favorable matchups coming up, which would be a nice plug and play. And in like a dynasty superflex league or any superflex league, he is a fine option. It's just I don't trust him because he never has that weekly upside for me. And he's just not showing that chemistry with Odell Beckham. He never has. And I don't think he ever will. Like they'll have one game where Odell will pop off and Baker will pop off. And then the next game, it's a dud. I personally can't trust him. Perhaps that's just me. I would just prefer not to roster him, not to start him anywhere, except in extremely good matchups.
So who would you rather start this week? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
All
Baker or Bridgewater?
I'm starting Bridgewater. I trust his weapons over Baker's weapons. I really like Cortland Sutton. I like Fant. I like Melvin coming out of the backfield. I like Javonte coming out of the backfield. So really, it just depends on who is surrounding them. Now, Cleveland is a tough defense, and Denver is a tough defense. So both of these quarterbacks won't do well. I think I have Bridgewater 1 to 2 spots ahead of Baker, but I lean Bridgewater.
Okay, no, I think that's fair. I think especially with the weapons being out, we'll see. We'll see on that one. All right, let's go to some sneaky start sits that we have. So let's look at some guys and just at each position that we're either going to sit, we're going to start, we're going to go from there. I'm going to start with mine, and mine is Joe Burrow. I think I'm going to sit him this week against Baltimore. That Baltimore defense has been very stingy this year. I think it's 210 yards allowed, passing offense, and you see what they were able to do last week against Herbert, and I think Herbert is a better quarterback than Burrow. I know Burrow will have probably his numbers. I think I worry about the interceptions. He'll probably throw 2 in this game. I don't know if you remember the last time that Burrow played Baltimore as a rookie. He got destroyed.
Really?
It was one of those games where you're just watching it and you're just like, what is going on right now with this guy? Because he just looked out of rank. Now, obviously this team's different, but still, he lost 3-27. His passer rating was 66%. He was 19 for 30 for an interception, 183 yards, and he had 2 fumbles. He got destroyed against this Baltimore defense last year. He didn't play him again because he got injured before, but I worry about that. I see that pass. I'm staying away from Burrow.
That is a very interesting pick just because Carson Wentz balled out on the Ravens, but then the Ravens turn around and just silence Justin Herbert. So, I can definitely see Burrow being a sit this week, but Burrow has been really good this season. But, perhaps this is the week to sit him if you have a better option. So my start of the week this week at quarterback, a sneaky start, is Ryan Tannehill. He welcomes in a Kansas City Chiefs defense that is allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Now, Kevin did talk earlier about how disappointed he was last week against Buffalo. I am not denying that. But Julio got injured last game, right? So he might not play this week. So why would I want to start Tannehill if he doesn't have all of his offensive weapons? Well, I almost think this is an addition by subtraction, since Tannehill had a monster season last year with just AJ Brown. All right. And he also consistently found AJ Brown in the second half of last game, which gives me hope that Tannehill and AJ Brown's chemistry is back on track. So I think that Tannehill steps up next week and gives Mahomes' production a run for its money. I don't think he'll match, but I think that Tannehill is a quarterback 1. He is my quarterback 10 this week.
Wow. All right.
Actually, he's my quarterback 8 this week. There you go.
Yeah, and quarterback 8's legit. I think if you're talking about like that, that's a hot take. I mean, he's quarterback 19 overall right now.
Right.
So that is a hot take. It's funny we do the segment, and I was gonna put Tannehill down too, and you got to him first. That's why I pivoted it a little bit. But I do agree. I think he has that matchup that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he's gonna do it any week, this would probably be the week. And so I don't hate it. It's just. Right. He's got to do a little bit better there, and we'll see. Kansas City, though, is not what we expected. All right, let's go to running backs. I'm going to go with my man Cordell Patterson. I'd like to go. We went deep on running backs. As you can tell, running backs are it's a little tougher to go here, and you'll see that.
Yes, it is.
You know what? Cordell Patterson against Miami. Again, you saw it last week. What the Jaguars, James Robinson was there, what he was able
Yeah.
to do. I think Cordell Patterson is a solid, safe play, and I think he's a solid running back too. I mean, I saw somebody have him as a running back 1. I don't know where you have him in your rankings. I saw somebody have Cordell Patterson as high as 7 and in PPR. So
Wow.
right now with his
Yeah,
buys and everything going there, I think that realistically you're looking at a low end running back 1 and a mid tier running back 2.
Yeah. I got Patterson's in between RB12 and 17, like somewhere in that range. I don't have my rankings in front of me, but I know that he's going to be a solid mid-range RB2. Just every time he's in the game, he is gonna get that touch. So my RB start, my sneaky start, is Elijah Mitchell. All right, they face the Indianapolis Colts. Now before the bye week, Mitchell ran for 43 yards on 9 carries, adding 2 catches for 19 yards against Arizona in week 5. Mitchell clearly functioned as the RB1 in San Francisco over Trey Sermon, who only had 1 carry. All right. And with Jimmy G trending towards playing this week, Mitchell should get more carries and just more touches in general. At home against the Colts in week 7. I have Elijah Mitchell as a mid-range RB2 this week.
Okay. Yeah, no. Hey, if he can do it, right? If he gets the touches, he'll be there. I'm just concerned with Shanahan. I'm just, who are these guys going to be? Where they're going to go? But no, I don't hate it. Against the Indianapolis defense, I'm all for it. Let's go to wide receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown is mine, playing against the Rams. A little homecoming. Jared Goff, little homecoming. What is he going to do here? Right. For me, revenge game, yeah. For me, it's just, I think, addition from subtraction in terms of, like, the weapons on the outside. I think that Amon-Ra can definitely step up. I think that he can be kind of just a solid flex play, especially in like we've been talking about, this week is tough, especially where he's at. He's wide receiver 77 right now in terms of the season. He got off to a little bit of slow start, but he did get 7 targets. So he's actually got 8 and 7 targets the last 3 games. So he's seen the targets there. So 23 targets the last 3 games. Obviously, he didn't put up the bigger numbers last week for receiving yards, but before that, he had 70 and 65. I can see him. Now, this is going to be a tough matchup for him. I know that. But I can see him kind of having that sneaky play to where, he's going to project. I think I have him projected right now in PPR as 10 points. So solid. I'm not saying out of the radar, but if you need to get somebody on that list and you're definitely not deep, I think Amon-Ra can be a guy.
5 catches for 50 yards is definitely doable. I think, since he's gotten like consistently 7 to 8 targets for a rookie. I mean, that's super impressive. So I feel comfortable starting him in a PPR league as well, especially as we say, in this bipocalypse week. So my sneaky start here is Darnell Mooney. He faces the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, last week, Mooney caught 5 passes for 45 yards and a touchdown against Green Bay. This week, he faces a Tampa Bay defense giving up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. So in a potentially negative game script, I like Mooney a lot, especially on DraftKings, where he's listed for $4,600. And I could also see A-Rob joining the fun and having himself a decent wide receiver 2 day as well. So if you held on to Allen Robinson and you're in this bye week, I would definitely start him. But Mooney is my sneaky start this week.
Hey, I think, the biggest thing for me is, can they keep Fields upright? And can that offensive line stop that defensive line? And they're a little banged up. And those corners like you talked about, banged up. Mooney can be the guy, right? I wish it was Allen Robinson, but I think Allen Robinson retired, and he's not back yet. So still waiting for our guy, Allen Robinson, out there. And
on vacation.
One of those things. But Mooney could be that person. I love that DK price, too. I think 4,600 could be. It's pretty good. I don't do a lot of daily DFS, but I like that price. All right, let's go to tight ends and defenses really quick. For me, I think Zach Ertz could be a smash this week against Houston. I love the matchup. Max Williams was putting up tight end 1 numbers, almost career numbers for him. Kingsbury has shown that he wants to get him more involved. They just traded for Ertz, so they're going to get him targets. Right. I think Ertz is a smash with the tight ends and where they're at. I'm just going to take him and just start him everywhere I have him.
I like that play a ton. And then my tight end sneaky start. I did it again. Is Anthony Ferguson, all right, versus Kansas City. So I have Tannehill as my snart at quarterback, and then I have Anthony Ferguson. Now, I know that Ferguson is a risky play after he only got one target last week. But before last week, he had 9 total targets over his previous 2 games. So with Julio trending towards being out, Ferguson to me looks like a solid option in what should be a potentially negative game script for the Tennessee Titans against the Chiefs. I can see him getting around 6+ targets for about 40 to 60 yards and a touchdown against a Kansas City defense that is giving up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this season.
Yeah, hey, if it's going to be any time, it's going to be Ferguson, right? But I like that you paired him with Tannehill. I mean, that's kind of, look at you stacking your tight end quarterback.
Stacking him. I mean, hey, he's only 3,100 on DraftKings right now. I mean, like that's a super low price.
Look at you dumpster diving out there. All right, so I'm going to go Denver Broncos for my start for defenses because they're playing Baker. No one's there. We realistically could see them getting some turnovers. I like that defense. I like that pass rush. You know, Surtain, you bastard. You guys took Surtain, and we got Diggs in the second round, and I'm pretty happy with Parsons. Surtain is a legit cornerback one. He is one of my favorite corners to watch already. You could already tell he has that lockdown skills. He doesn't let him get by. He has great hips. He's legit. You guys are excited about him.
You know what? I thought when Champ Bailey said that he sees a lot of himself in Patrick Surtain, I just thought that was hyperbole. I threw it away. I was like, yeah, you say that about every corner who comes here. But I was like, oh my gosh, he actually does have some champ to him. Like, he has too. Patrick Surtain is the real deal, man. So it is fun watching him, that's for sure. My defense this week is the Arizona Cardinals facing the Houston Texans. So this is the 3rd week in a row where I've suggested starting a defense playing the Houston Texans. Last week, the Colts held the Texans to 3 points, and I see the same thing happening this week against Arizona. So Cardinals should be locked into your fantasy and DFS lineups this week against Davis Mills, and they're surprisingly only the 7th most expensive defense on DraftKings at 3,100. Super surprising because they have a super high floor where the Texans are going to score at the most 10 points and probably give up a few sacks along with a pick or 2. So the Cardinals are my stone cold lock this week.
Yeah, no, that's a fair pick. Anybody playing Houston, it should be a lock. But yeah, those are our guys. Those are our start sits, and we're gonna go through my dynasty panic meter. And you can always find this on Fantasy Pros. I write about them. I just like to talk about on here if you don't like written work. And I'm gonna just go through some guys, and we'll see what you guys think. Like, so one of my first guys that I want to talk about is Tua. Tua Tagovailoa. He's had a rough start to his career. It's been a little tough. But he came back against the Jaguars. He played relatively well. He threw for 329 yards, 2 touchdowns. He scored 22.4 fantasy points. The Dolphins are bad. The game script's going to go his way this year. He's going to have to throw a little bit more. It looks like he has that with Waddle. I think he's a solid QB2 in Superflex leagues. So this is based on his value now. So I think when you're looking at him, what he's going to be, and with how bad the quarterback landscape is out there, you can't tell me Tua is not going to be a starter for the next 3 to 5 years. Can you?
Oh, yeah. I expect him. I expect him to start for some team. It should be the Dolphins, but yeah,
should be. But I mean, he's going to start. Look at the Broncos. Like, there's teams out there that could use Tua. So, like, I think he's a very safe player to go grab in Dynasty because of his price. So a recent trade that he was involved in was Mac Jones and Brandon Bolden for Tua.
Love it. Wow.
Okay, I'll take Tua. I'm sure that the Tua manager is upset. Mac has looked okay, and I see that. But that to me, if that's his value, it's a smash buy for me out there. Mm-hmm. If you can grab him with that, be a solid QB2, and give up a guy like Mac Jones, who he's okay. I like Mac Jones, but I think Tua may have a little bit more upside in that position.
Yeah,
I'm all about that. So I think Tua is a buy right now in Dynasty, and I would go grab him. The other guy is CMC. I think he's a buy as well. If you can go grab him and you're going to be competing and he comes back healthy, he's going to win your league. Like, he's going to win it. Health is always a concern, but it is what it is at this point. You got to take a little shot sometimes. And I think that he's there. Now, his price is, it's there. In a tight end premium league, he went for Trey Sermon, Deontay, and George Kittle last week.
Oh, It's a decent haul for both sides.
Yes.
But yeah, like you said, if CMC comes back healthy, it's a league winner.
And that's fair, right? And in terms
Yeah,
of me, like that's a fair deal. But I think he can be. And someone asked me today, they have CMC. Another team had Zeke. The owner that had Zeke offered him Zeke straight up for CMC. It's a keeper league, so you get to keep it. No draft pick problem. So you basically just get to keep him. It's kind of like a mini keeper.
Right.
And I told him I would hold on to CMC
Same.
because I still think that CMC's value is going to be ahead of Zeke's. And if he comes back, he's a legit. I mean, he was going to put up running back one numbers without scoring touchdowns. Like, this guy is just a cheat code, and it's a health thing. But that's kind of where I'm at with CMC. And the last guy I was going to mention, I think Russell Wilson is also a clear buy right now.
Okay.
I don't know if he's going to come back. I think that he'll come back at Green Bay at the earliest because that's week 10. That's when the bye is. Next week is week 10. Whatever. But Russ was QB 10 in fantasy before he got hurt. So we're still talking about a QB1 that you can maybe go buy from a contender who needs a quarterback, and you can grab him and you get younger. So, for example, Wilson got traded for Nyheim Hines in a 2022 first. I don't know if I want to give a 22 first, but if it's in a super flex league, I can understand it. Yeah. Tom Brady and Daniel Jones for Russell Wilson. I get it.
Yeah. It's a little weird trade. Like, that's really weird.
It is weird. I think they figure Daniel Jones is kind of out.
Yeah.
They can have Tom Brady as their guy. Maybe they get lucky with Jones, that bridge guy, and then Russell will just go and whatever. So if I'm a Russell guy, I'm getting that. I'm saying, okay, I can't win it this year. I'll get rid of Brady. You can have Jones, whatever. Give me Russell, and I have 2 or 3 years of legitimate competition where they can build it up. So that's kind of, I feel like where that. And then he actually went straight up for Aaron Rodgers. Again, I can see where you look at your dynasty roster, you realize you're not going to contend. So, okay, let me give up Aaron. Let me get a quarterback back. Russell could be that guy. So for me, I like that idea. And I like kind of go out there and grabbing those guys. So those are kind of my dynasty panic meter. I would, buy Tua. I'd buy Russell. I would probably buy CMC if I could.
I like those picks, man. I like those picks a lot. I actually might just float out a deal for Tua there because I definitely need a quarterback. So I like that a lot. And the Russell Wilson buy is really good. I was kind of confused at the Daniel Jones and Tom Brady for Wilson, but I was only confused on the side of whoever was giving up Wilson. It's like, no, keep Wilson for that because like you said, we don't know how long we're going to have a Brady. And Daniel Jones, we don't know if he is the answer. So that's a really good buy for Russell. If you can get him for that cheap or just for that kind of package, I like it a lot. So I like those picks, Kevin. Everybody listen up there, you dynasty managers out there. Listen up and buy these guys.
Yeah, and make sure you buy them at the right price, please. Right. All right, let's go over QB streamers. Let's get into this, and we'll wrap up the show.
All right, my Week 7 quarterback streamer starts with Derek Carr. All right, he welcomes in a Philadelphia Eagles defense that didn't have to do too much against Tom Brady, or just because Leonard Fournette just stomped all over them. But I think that Derek Carr is going to have to do a lot this week. Last week, Carr finished as quarterback 11, throwing for 341 yards and a couple scores against a solid Broncos defense in Denver. So he found Henry Ruggs on a 48-yard touchdown strike and also found Bryan Edwards for a 51-yard strike. This week, Carr returns home to face Philadelphia, where he will most likely have to throw the ball a lot more than he did in Denver last week. All right, Carr is my quarterback 10 this week and is an excellent option on DraftKings at 6,000. Now, my second quarterback is Tua Tagovailoa. All right, he welcomes in the Atlanta Falcons. All right. And Tua is rostered in 26% of Sleeper and 18% on Yahoo. Tua returned after a 3-game absence last week to throw 329 yards and 2 touchdowns. He threw the ball 47 times. So we're not worried about, if he can sustain that level. All right. He is going to throw if he has to. He tallied 76 passing yards on Miami's opening drive, which concluded with a 6-yard score to Jalen Waddle. Last week was his third 300-yard performance of his career, and I think he makes it 4 this week at home against an Atlanta defense giving up the 7th most fantasy quarterbacks on the season.
I like both those guys. I think that Derek Carr's legit. He's solid. Tua against Atlanta. Again, we talked about him a lot. So good. Who were your streamers last week? Do you remember?
Last week, I had Carson Wentz, who he did well.
Yeah, he
and
did
then,
okay.
Who did I have? Oh my gosh, man.
Getting old.
We are getting old. Oh, I had Tyler Heinecke, who definitely struggled. He struggled. I think he only got about 10 to 11 points in such a negative game script against the Chiefs, but still couldn't get anything going, which was a huge bummer. It's safe to say that Heinecke is no longer trustworthy as a streaming option. Like, if you can't get it done against the Kansas City Chiefs, who give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, then you can't trust them, which is why if Tannehill can't do it, like you said earlier, we can't trust him.
No, we can't trust him there. All right, let's go to our last segment here, and we'll talk about locks of the week, and we'll talk about those guys. Why don't I just give mine real quick? You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I like picking oddball guys, and I think guys that maybe, especially this week, I'm going James Conner. Against the Houston, we're just going to pick you know what's going to happen. We're picking all these Cardinals, and then Houston's going to win. But anyway, so, I think Conner could be a 2-touchdown guy in this game. And I think that's there, especially with what Houston's given up in the rushing attack. So I think my lock is that James Conner can be a running back too this week.
I like that a lot. And what should be a very positive game script for the Cardinals. I mean, he's going to have a lot of touches, a lot of carries. All right, so my lock of the week is Daryl Henderson Jr., all right. He faces the Detroit Lions. Henderson has been the model of consistency this year, finishing as the RB 16, 11, 17, 20, and 6 in all 5 games he's played so far, which means he's never finished lower than an RB2 in any games he's played in 2021. This week, he faces a lowly Detroit Lions defense, giving up the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. I expect Matthew Stafford to get up early at home against Detroit, then run the clock out with Daryl Henderson. Henderson, for me, is easily a top 5 back for me.
Okay. Yeah. No, hey, Henderson is going to pick up that work that we're talking about with Akers, right? We wish it would have been Akers back in the day, but it's not. RIP Akers out there. All right. Well, hey, it was a great show. We talked about it. I'm rooting for your Broncos on Thursday, Jacob, and my Noah fan shares to do that. Just you got to get a win, right? At some point. Is your coach the worst coach in the NFL?
Yeah, he just might be. I don't know. He might be giving Urban a run for his money there, but it's close.
It's close. It is way too close to comfort. So, Fangio. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button, that like button. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.